everybody. You know what? There is a multitude of milestones in the history of the WWE, and I am muddling through the miscellany of moments just for you. My moniker is Tom Campbell, and this is the letter M on the A to Z of WWE. M is for Mick Foley, Mrs. Foley's baby boy, who hitchhiked to Madison Square Garden as just a youngster. Of course, Mick Foley's first run in the WWF wasn't as iconic as his main one. He was involved in a tag match, teaming with Les Thornton against the British Bulldogs, and took a clothesline from Dynamite Kid that nearly broke his jaw. That's kind of what Dynamite Kid did. Mick Foley truly arrived in the WWF as Mankind in 1996. He would be involved in an iconic moment in 1998 when he would be thrown off the Hell in a Cell by The Undertaker. He would go on to become a beloved goofball, trying to win the favor of Vince McMahon, only to have his heart broken by the evil Mr. McMahon and have the WWF Championship dreams quashed when The Rock joined the corporation at Survivor Series. Of course, those dreams would come to fruition just a couple of weeks later when Mrs. Foley's baby boy would become the WWF champion on an episode of Monday Night Raw. Over the years, we would see not just Mankind, we'd see all three faces of Foley. Dude Love, baby, and Cactus Jack would bring a whole new level of hardcore wrestling to the WWF. Cactus Jack, Dude Love, Mankind, and Mick Foley would all retire from full-time competition in the year 2000. We would see Mick Foley have a memorable run as the commissioner of the WWF on a couple of occasions, and we would see on the odd occasion Mick Foley return to the ring, doing some incredible work with guys like Randy Orton and Edge. Mick Foley was a key player for the WWF in our next M, the Monday Night War, as WWF and WCW went head to head. The story goes that Eric Bischoff turned to Ted Turner and said, hey, if you want to beat WWF in the ratings, then you need to give WCW primetime Monday night up against Monday Night Raw. And Ted Turner said, yeah, all right, we'll do it. And the Monday Night Wars were born. We would see a paradigm shift on a Monday as the cooler, hipper, trendier WCW, which was attracting all the big stars from the WWF, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, Hulk Hogan, all going to WCW. We would see all the eyes going that way. And for 83 weeks, WCW Monday Nitro would defeat Monday Night Raw in the ratings. While this is going on, WWF are building their army with younger, hotter, new talent. Guys like Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, Shawn Michaels still in the mix just about at this point. And then we would see an influx of younger WCW stars looking to get a shine coming through to the WWF. And as WCW started to get a little bit old and stale and didn't really change with the times, more people were going, hey, look at this, look at WWF, who's Steve Austin? We like him. Hey, Degeneration X, they're pretty cool. And you just suddenly see the movement this side. And then the war ended. Well, you know how the war ended because we're not doing the A to Z of WCW, are we? One of the voices we'd hear during the Monday Night War is our next M, Michael Cole, Shawn Michael Coulthard, who left a job at CBS Radio to come and work for the World Wrestling Federation in 1997. You may hear him on some early voiceover stuff, sort of pre-Attitude Era. He was doing a lot of voiceover bits, he was doing backstage interviewing, and he would eventually work his way into the commentary position, sometimes working alongside, sometimes replacing Jerry Lawler or Jim Ross. Michael Cole was also the host for a while of WWF Livewire, which is a whole other subject for a whole other time. Michael Cole replaced JR as the lead commentator for Monday Night Raw throughout a big part of 1999 as JR suffered another bout of Bell's palsy. JR would return to that seat, but Michael Cole would very much become the metaphorical lady in waiting for that role. He would spend his time working on SmackDown, and that would very much become his show until eventually his time came and JR was moved to SmackDown and Michael Cole was moved to Monday Night Raw. Cole spent 10 years as the lead announcer for Raw, which is an incredible achievement. He even spent some time working as a heel, and didn't really set the world on fire. I don't think we've truly forgiven him for that just yet. Now back on Friday Night SmackDown, working alongside Corey Graves. Michael Cole, very much a part of many people's childhood growing up in the WWE now. M is also for Mae Young Classic. Johnny Mae Young, a trailblazing women's wrestling pioneer from the 40s, who made an unbelievable comeback in 1999. Got involved in some terrific storyline shenanigans with not just the women's division of the time, but also with Mark Henry, to whom they fathered a child. The Attitude Era. Also a memorable moment when Mae Young got put through a table by Bubba Ray Dudley. Sadly, Mae Young is no longer with us, but a tournament is held in her honor. And in 2017, we saw the inaugural Mae Young Classic. There's been 2 Mae Young Classic tournaments now showcasing breakout women's wrestling talent. The first one won by Kairi Sane, and the most recent Mae Young Classic won by Toni Storm. But throughout both of those tournaments, we have seen stars come through and make an impact on both the NXT and the WWE roster. Stars like Shayna Baszler, Candice LeRae, Mia Yim, Io Shirai, Rhea Ripley, among others. And legends like Miko Satomura would make an impact in the Mae Young Classic. Now, we are expecting another Mae Young Classic and plenty more Mae Young Classic tournaments as the years go on in WWE. More opportunities to showcase some incredible women's wrestling talent. Let's bust some moves. M is for moonsault. Innovated by Mondo Guerrero, popularized by the Great Muta, first pulled out in an American wrestling ring by Leaping Lanny Poffo. It is a beautifully devastating maneuver, is the moonsault. So if you backflip onto your opponent from a height, doesn't have to be a big height, you could just be stood over them, you could be standing on the rope, you could be standing on a balcony, you could be standing on the moon. As long as there's a backflip involved and you hit your opponent, you've pretty much nailed a moonsault. Nowadays, there's a whole litany of moonsault variations on the scene. The Acai moonsault, brought to us by Ultimo Dragon, which involves a moonsault off the apron. The Lion Salt, which involves a springboard into your moonsault as well. That's pretty effective. Chris Jericho bringing us that bad boy. And John Morrison hitting a springboard corkscrew moonsault with particularly devastating effect with Starship Pain. Just a couple of the moonsault variations on the scene right now. In fact, here's a load more. A moonsault off a ladder is called a moonsault off a ladder, probably seen in our next M, Money in the Bank. In 2005, Chris Jericho walked out on Monday Night Raw with a concept for a match featuring some of the top WWE stars of the day and a ladder in the center of the ring. Above the ladder, a briefcase that contains a contract for a WWE Championship match whenever and wherever the holder desires. The first ever Money in the Bank ladder match took place at WrestleMania 21. Edge was the proud recipient of that briefcase, and with it, just under a year later, he cashed it in on John Cena to become the WWE Champion for the very first time in his career. CM Punk has the record for most back-to-back Money in the Bank wins. He got the briefcase at both WrestleMania 24 and 25. John Cena has the not-so-prestigious accolade of one of the very few men to cash in and not become the champion. Nowadays, the Money in the Bank ladder match is its own pay-per-view event and features a side-by-side women's Money in the Bank ladder match. First time won by Carmella in 2017 with a little bit of help from her corner man, James Ellsworth. James Ellsworth to Carmella may very well fall under this next M, managers. Those people at ringside who are there not just to help with your business endeavors, more than likely they're there to cause a little bit of shenanigans at ringside as well. One of the first noteworthy managers in the history of the company was the Grand Wizard, who in the WWF in the 70s managed Blackjack Mulligan and Beautiful Bobby. Since then, we have seen a plethora of corner people in the company. Guys like Bobby the Brain Heenan, the Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart, Harvey Whippleman, sensational Queen Sherry, Miss Elizabeth, will you marry me? That's another story for another time. Jim Cornette, Johnny Polo, Paul Ellering, Paul Heyman, most recently Sami Zayn in the corner of Shinsuke Nakamura, to name but a few. Sadly, there's not as many managers around in the WWE in 2019. There's a couple floating around, but overall the idea of the manager has somewhat died out, at least for now. M is also for $1 Million Championship. When Ted DiBiase couldn't get his hands on the WWF title, he went to get his very own belt custom made and minted that cost $1 million. And this became the belt that he would wear to the ring with him at all occasions. There was an iconic moment when Ted DiBiase's former servant Virgil finally got a big win over the man who treated him so badly all those years and took the $1 Million Championship belt with him. DiBiase would win it back, and then the next time we would see the $1 Million title would be over the shoulder of the Ringmaster, aka Steve Austin, the latest charge of Ted DiBiase. And we would see it again a bit further down the road when Ted DiBiase Sr. would welcome to the WWE Ted DiBiase Jr. Keeping that in the family. That's in your will, that is, Ted. It's in your will, that belt. So the $1 Million Championship doesn't have the lineage of, say, like the World Championship or the WWE Championship or, say, our next M, Madison Square Garden, which isn't a belt you can win, but it's a place you can go. The company's home turf has always been the Garden. WrestleManias, Royal Rumbles, SummerSlams, Survivor Series, all emanating from the Garden. Countless episodes of Raw and SmackDown as well. And with it, some iconic moments in the history of the WWF and the WWE took place at the Garden. We had the war to settle the score between Hulk Hogan and Rowdy Roddy Piper. We had the very first stunner onto Vince McMahon take place at Madison Square Garden as well. The debut of Rocky Maivia would take place in those hallowed grounds, as would the return of Triple H in 2002. Just a handful of the moments that we have seen from New York's very own Madison Square Garden. We have seen other companies running the Garden as of late, but if you're a WWF/WWE historian, you will know there's no place like home, and that home is the Garden. And who made the Garden that home? Well, that would be our next M, McMahon. Jess McMahon is the father of Vince McMahon Sr. Vince McMahon Sr. is the father of Vincent Kennedy McMahon Jr. Vince McMahon, alongside his wife Linda, would revolutionize the wrestling business. And they've made quite a few enemies in the process, but they would turn the idea of wrestling into sports entertainment, and in doing so make it a global phenomenon. Vince and Linda have two children, Shane McMahon and Stephanie McMahon. Both were part of the company in very early days, in very small capacities. In fact, Stephanie McMahon did some modeling back in the day. There she is in the WWF catalogue, looking adorable. Both would appear on camera as years would go on as well. Shane McMahon joining Vince McMahon's corporation in late 1998, and Stephanie McMahon being embroiled in a kidnap/gothic wedding featuring The Undertaker and the Ministry of Darkness. Actually, in 1999, there'd be two marriages she wasn't massively a fan of, one to The Undertaker and the other in a drive-thru with Triple H. That was the thing that happened. Art would imitate life, as Triple H and Stephanie McMahon would end up being a couple outside of the ring as well as inside the ring as well. Shane McMahon would make sporadic appearances in WWE until about 2009, when he would leave to go and pursue some of his own endeavors away from his dad's business. He'd come back just a couple of years ago, actually, to be a part of SmackDown as the on-screen commissioner, a role that he has since lost and now is working behind the scenes on. Stephanie McMahon, meanwhile, would go behind the scenes as well, working as the chief branding officer for WWE. As for Vince McMahon, well, you know what? Let's save Vince McMahon for another time, shall we? So that is M on the A to Z of WWE. Next time, the future is now. Bye! Hey, thanks for watching. Don't forget to leave a comment in the comment section down below. You can support us on Patreon by going to patreon.com/Cultaholic. Lastly, don't forget to hit subscribe and join us.